from multiple, if not all, student governments all over CUNY. So the way that we can go about this, and the way that I'm planning to go about this by proposing it to the steering, to the whole plenary, is trying to create a bridge committee between the student government presidents, the student government executives, and USS. I know that we already have the delegates, right? I know that you're all here, that we are all here, that we are all still working together, but I believe in the power on focusing and creating different boxes and segments for different pressing issues. So that one task force will be solely focused on making sure that we connect with the student governments regularly to know what's going on, to know if they're having an event, how can USS partner in this event, which is why I love Rajvinder's idea here. How can USS partner on this event, which is going to be give visibility to USS, which is going to inform USS about what's going on in the campus, and which will help all of us connect with everybody else. That's a little bit my role as Vice President of External Affairs at CityTech, where I am supposed to be the bridge between all other CUNY schools and CityTech. Another thing that we can do, another thing that I'm planning to do is create CUNY-wide committees about different things. Now, this is just an example. The Roof of Manhattan Community College has an African Heritage Month organizational committee, right? Some other colleges have committees to organize Hispanic Heritage Month, some about women empowerment and things like that. How can we make all of these months global celebration times for all CUNY students? So instead of BMCC celebrating their own thing and that other college celebrating their own thing, USS can just reunite all these people around the same table, have the same events, and just working together, which is going to give us visibility and which will help us do our work even better. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, Aharon.
Thank you. Okay, so this was something that came up a lot. And Salimatu, I'm going to agree with you on that proposal that you did with the breach committee that was going to communicate with the SGA. Spot on. Support you fully on that. Now, regarding how I would address this specifically, I'm going to add a little bit to that kind of like breach thing. I do think that USS at the moment, their branding is fairly bad. If you don't believe me, just go on their Instagram, and if you find a post with more than 4 likes, I'll send you a thank you message. Okay. It's going to be very impossible, I would say, to find something on CUNY, on USS website, okay, that has any engagement from students. And I'm sorry to say that, but this is a fact. Now, moving on, how do we actually improve it? Okay, so there's a few ways how to approach this, in my opinion. First of all, what I started doing, and I was hoping that actually I'm going to get some support from the delegates at some point, is actually making a kind of like directory of all the chats that we have. So I'm going to give you an example of what we have in Brooklyn College. Okay, here's a link. I highly advise everybody to look in it. And you have over there all the main student groups. We have a WhatsApp group. Okay, if you literally click on the WhatsApp icon over there, you're going to see approximately like 50 WhatsApp groups that we have with interests, with clubs, with majors, okay, and stuff like that. This is excellent. It's an excellent way to access students, okay, because we actually have a lot of student group chats and we just don't have a place that centralizes. And this is something that USS can take over. Moving on, because we don't have a lot of time, the next kind of like approach that I would like to take also is, in addition to that, is to charter CUNY clubs. Unfortunately, the last time that I said I want to charter a CUNY-wide club, I was told by USS that, no, Aaron, go try something else. And I was really disappointed with that. I want USS to start chartering big clubs. Okay, I have the computer science club who reached out to me and they said, we want to make a big CUNY computer science club. We want to make a big hackathon for everyone. 5 seconds, actually. But okay, well, you can keep up later.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to remember. So I'm sorry, which candidates are still waiting to answer that question, or did we get all 4?
I believe we got all 4.
Okay. Okay. Are there any colleges?
Hostos, I want to ask a question. So how moving forward will USS allow SGA representatives and your campuses to have slightly more presence in the like decision makings? Because mostly we sit there and we we pontificate, we sit there in these long processes. We try and advocate for the students, and nothing gets done. More so, they say they're doing things, but there's never any like concrete proof that they are. Because so I want to know how USS will allow SGA to have more presence. By the way, I'm a part of the SGA at Hostos. I'm Junior Corella. I am a vice president of academic affairs so far. So I'd like to know how USS will deal with this type of problem that we do have, by the way.
Okay, Rajvinder?
So in every meetings we get together and everyone have a chance to speak. So I'm not sure how the USS meetings are going on, like if everyone don't get a chance, but if I become the chairperson, I'll make sure that everyone get a chance to speak and say whatever they want to say. And if the meetings are over, they will get a chance. So we'll make something place where they can give their comments, feedback on whatever we decided today, if they agree or still they have something else to add. I'll do something about this, but I'm not sure about how I'm gonna do this. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go backwards in order. Abigail?
Okay, I didn't know it was going to be me next, but all right. Anyhow, so as far as this is concerned, it goes back to committees, and this is the one time I will pull this out. A lot of campus voices go through the committees, but I think more than that, the meetings have to be more organized, where the campuses do have a realistic voice in the meetings and where they can actually tally up something so the people on steering can actually see effectively, this is where the body wants to go. This is not just something they get to vote on without feedback. And I think that's absolutely important. I will do what I've done on city tech government, but only on a larger and more complex scale. I've utilized a lot of technology to leverage the ability of people who otherwise would not have a voice and not have input to have that input. And it works out in a much better governance because we all come to the table with some form of agreement and we're all able to make lasting resolutions that creates legacies for all of us. And that's what I will simply do as USS chair. Now, I don't know what I'll do if I'm not elected. I will try and work with that with whoever is. But as USS chair, you're guaranteed I'm going to make sure your voice is heard. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you. Aharon?
Thank you. Junior, I think this is an excellent question. The way that I would address it if I'm chair is, first of all, I'm going to demand from my steering that everybody in steering has to be inside a group with all the council of presidents, period. Okay, everybody needs to be inside that group so every SGA president can communicate with steering. Okay, that is a basic thing, a basic need that I believe should happen between the SGA presidents and steering. That's first of all. Second, everyone from the Council of Presidents, that means all the presidents, okay, should get an invitation to the USS meeting. I don't care if they're a delegate or not a delegate. They should be able to join the meeting. Simple as that. They should be able also to have possibly a delegate from the Council of Presidents that will talk, a liaison basically, that will talk from the Council of Presidents. Moving on, we can also do very easily, every resolution, every meeting minutes that passes, okay, I believe the Council of Presidents should have their own email address where they're CC'd on it, okay, and it should be, that should be kind of like basic, so we have the passage of information goes back and forth. Now, the last thing that I would say, okay, and this is again to kind of like one of the points that I was saying before about, I believe that currently the chairperson in USS has too much power. And even if I'm going to be the chairperson, I think that the chairperson should have less power and some other group should hold them accountable. What do I mean by that? Currently, If I'm the chairperson, I get to nominate all the rules and ethics. Okay, so I get to nominate my own people who will decide if they should impeach me or not. Beautiful, huh? Now, what I would suggest instead, okay, we can have also the body of the Council of Presidents who they can override basically and start an impeachment trial from their side as well. That's one way that we can hold the chairperson accountable, okay? So they don't go off the rails. That's all.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, Salimatu.
I believe that every change comes at its own scale. From being myself someone who dedicated all her time and everything that I'm doing to people, basically, and to having this concrete organization, I know that sometimes you're doing something and you wish that so much more people would know about it, but it's just not happening. And you feel like it was zero change. But believe me, there was change and there was evolution. The way that we can best assess what's going on and how much change we have made is again by creating these little units of people who can work. I know that the chair is going to be elected and we will have a full steering, right? But that's a lot to take on. So for each important issue that as a whole plenary, we decide that we want to work on, I would like to create these different units where the SJ members are going to participate in, the delegates are going to be in them, the alternates are going to be in them, and we will also have in these different task forces, in these different units, people from other CUNY administration parts, where conversations can be had, when people can discuss the problems and we can find concrete solutions by collaboration. I believe that we all have to learn how to make proposals here. From my experience, I know that you will not always have a seat at the table to talk about what you care about. That's why I created my organization, because there was just no space. I wasn't in student government. I was just a student representative. I wasn't going to wait 1 year later when I run for student government to start doing what I have to do, right? I had to take action. And I believe that we should all learn how to do that a little more than just talk about it. We should be able to put it on paper or on the internet or any website that we can put together. So I'm going to reiterate that training, learning. We are not perfect, but we can make ourselves become better leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think, are there any outstanding colleges?
No.
Okay, great. Okay, so that closes the question session for the chairpersons. And we now open the question section for the next group, which is the Vice Chair for Legislative Affairs. How many candidates do we have?
Just a minute, there's something in the chat. Somebody is asking about, Bashir is asking if there's this opportunity to ask extra questions, even if their college has already asked. And I think we just need to let them know that I don't think they can, right? That's
correct. You can only ask one question.
Motion to suspend the rules and allow one question.
I don't know if this is like a regular meeting. USERC is running this. This is not being run by the chair of the USS, and the committee would have to determine that, take it under advisement. So if this isn't a place where you're going to start making motions about how to change the elections. Again, you could have done that last year, and you didn't.
But isn't it part of the bylaws? And theoretically, we can suspend the bylaws based on the chairperson. If the chairperson accepts and we have a second, the chairperson is allowed to suspend basically the bylaws, and based on precedent, we can move on. The chairperson could override the bylaws based on majority. If I make a motion and there's a second on the floor, we're allowed to continue. The question is if we have a second.
Madam Chair, Chris, we have 9 more positions to go, Aaron. 9 more positions to go. Each campus is 24, so have to ask a question, right? An extra question, you have to be practical here, Aaron. You have to look at the whole scope of dealing with students who need to go and study and all that. So look at the whole scope of what is going on right now. Since you have 9 more other positions to have everybody ask a question. So be a little bit more practical in this whole thing regarding, you know, the extra question that with respect to President Bashir can ask and all of that. You know, there's going to be more times for that. So just be a little bit practical to think of your other colleagues, what they have going on as a student right now.
Madam Chairwoman, may I make a point of order?
Sure.
Well, first of all, this entire debate is spurious, surely, since Mr. Grammer has yet to find his second to his motion. So
Right.
we are now debating the propriety of a motion that has not actually reached a successful vote.
Fair enough.
But further to the point, earlier on I called for a break. I motioned to break, and that motion was met and moved through and wasn't viewed as a great challenge. I was actually about to motion that we suspend questioning for the provost, since the nominee is running unopposed and has been supported by numerous other delegates that were nominated. I think there seems to be an attitude to the rules on the floor that suggests that they are sort of difficult or time consuming, but they can be quite the opposite. Thank you.
I second that motion.
Oh, I hadn't actually submitted one, but I can if you want.
You're seconding what motion?
I thought that he was putting the motion to
I'll put the motion. Motion to
suspend
yeah.
questioning for the uncontested position.
Okay.
Can I jump in here a second
Sure.
and just say that again, USERC is running the election,
Exactly.
and the body, you basically, we're doing this for you. We're like, you know, think of us as the third party for the, so we're running the election. And if you want to change the way the election runs, the way to do that is in committees over the term of the year. So one thing you could do though is if no college asks a question, there are no, if everybody passes on asking the candidate a question, then you will move forward. So there are ways to do this which are legitimate, and then there are ways that are just trying to, you know, fix things after, you know, in the wrong way. All right. So again, I would just say USERC is running the elections for you. All right. And maybe we should just proceed with the way that the USS has written the bylaws. How about that?
I do appreciate the clarification, and I take your point that I shouldn't be trying to use Robert's rules to like and sort of ad hoc duct tape fix it kit. So I apologize. No,
it's okay. No, sorry if I came off, you know, like, no, I think it's great that you guys are, you know, exercising your abilities to speak and think and reason. It's great. But the USERC has to assert its authority in this particular situation. That's all.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Lucrece, you can move
Yes.
forward.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so the questions from the colleges for the second candidate. I'm sorry, for the second position, the vice chair for legislative affairs. First college, please.
CUNY graduate. CUNY Law.
Hi, yes. My question for this position is, what are your goals for the candidate for this position is, what are your goals for this position? And how can we enhance USS's legislative initiatives?
Thank you for the question. I know it's been a long meeting, so I'll try to be as succinct as possible. Essentially, my goals for this position is to how we can better enhance USS's legislative priorities and or initiatives is, I think, twofold. One, primarily it's to develop a more robust professional operation through partnering with other organizations, other advocacy organizations, seeking out professional help where we can to partner with, to help train students. I think USS and student government throughout the university, we have an opportunity to train student leaders how to be leaders. We're all going to leave here at the end of the day and go into the world to operate and engage and to do so many, great things. So I think we have the opportunity to make sure students are well equipped to learn how to be leaders here and to carry these initiatives or whatever initiatives that you want to in your life leaving the university, and be prepared to do that. So the same way our college professors are preparing you to join the workforce or eventually be employable, I think student government has a responsibility to ensure that students continue to be leaders once they leave the university.
Okay, thank you. And again, how many candidates do we have for this position?
1.
Okay. Can we go down the list of colleges, please?
CUNY SPS. School of Public Health. School of Labor and Urban Studies. Baruch College. Brooklyn College.
Pass.
City College. Hunter College. John Jay College.
Pass.
Lehman College.
Corey, what is the best way to communicate with you? Because I'd like to ask you a question offline in the interest of time.
Sure, you can communicate with me. I'll give you my phone number. Everyone can take it down, 347-210-2275. Again, it's 347-210-2275. Shoot me a text. Texts are better than calling, and then we can set up a time to chat. And you could always just Google me. I'm everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, during roll call, if we have any personal questions, can we just ask that in the chat, in direct? Medgar Evers. New York City Tech.
Pass.
College of Staten Island. York College. BMCC.
Pass.
Bronx Community College.
Pass.
Gutman Community College.
Pass, please.
Oak Hills Community College.
Pass, please.
Kingsborough Community College. LaGuardia Community College. And Queens Community College. That concludes the schools.
Thank you very much. So that concludes the question session for the Vice Chair for Legislative Affairs position. Now opening that session for the Vice Chair for Fiscal Affairs. How many candidates do we have?
1.
1, okay. Can you start with the colleges, please?
Yes. CUNY Graduate Center. CUNY Law. CUNY SPS. School of Public Health. School of Labor. School of Public.
Pass.
I'm sorry.
School of Labor, pass.
Baruch College. Brooklyn College.
Pass.
City College. Hunter College. John Jay College. Lehman College. Medgar Evers. New York City Tech.
Pass.
Queens College. College of Staten Island. York College. BMCC.
Pass.
Bronx Community.
Pass.
Gutman.
Pass, please.
Ostos. Kingsborough.
Please.
Kingsborough. LaGuardia. And QCC. That concludes the schools.
Thank you. So that concludes the question and answer section for the Vice Chair for Fiscal Affairs. We're going to now open the question and answer period for Vice Chair for Graduate Affairs. But before we do that, just briefly, just want to make the minutes clear that there were no questions asked during the question and answer period for the Vice Chair for Fiscal Affairs. All colleges chose to pass. For the remainder of the positions, should a college choose to pass on their opportunity to ask a question, please affirmatively state so that the minutes are clear. Thank you. So now we're opening the question and answer period for Vice Chair for Graduate Affairs. How many candidates do we have?
2.
Okay. Can you go down the roll of colleges, please?
CUNY Graduate Center.
Yes, Jonathan Hannon, alternate from CUNY Graduate Center. I have a question.
I'm sorry, my colleague and I were just conferring about the question. May we exercise an opportunity
we'll
to
pass.
be returned to? Thank you.
Okay, CUNY Law.
I don't want to ask a question for myself, but I don't know if my alternate wanted to.
I have no question.
SPS. School of Public Health.
Yes, I have a question. Just want to know, like, what would be your main goal for just improving graduate affairs? Because I'm a graduate student myself, and that's of particular interest to me.
I'm sorry, what, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, I asked what was just one main goal you would have in terms of improving graduate affairs or diversifying or bringing anything new.
Okay. And so can the first candidate answer the question? I'm sorry, I don't remember the names of the candidates right now.
I'm not sure which order.
It doesn't matter. Just if you can just name if you can just provide me with the names of the candidate, then I'll just indicate the order.
I'm
Rabbit,
Nardine.
The names, please. The first names of the candidates, and then I'll indicate
Yeah,
the order.
Rabbit, please give the president the first name of the candidates.
I believe it was Nardine and Jacqueline. Robin, you can confirm.
Thank you, Giovanni. Okay. Okay, let's start with Jacqueline, please.
Somebody from her campus privately messaged me. She stepped out this meeting. They're trying to reach her, but she's not here at this moment right now, but she was on earlier. I'm not sure if she is having connectivity issues, but I guess you just proceed with Nardine right now.
Okay, then the remaining candidate on this meeting.
Thank you so much. I think it's really important first of all, to strengthen communication between graduate students, including, students on USS. So I'm definitely interested in meeting with you and other graduate students and coming up with an agenda that covers all of these different issues. But I do think ultimately no matter what we do, we have to start from having a place where we can talk to each other. But unfortunately, this communication isn't facilitated. It's difficult for other CUNY students to find each other. I think another issue that we have with the graduate schools, and this is an issue we face particularly at CUNY Law, I'm not sure if others have also faced it, but the fellowships and the people that they were bringing in to the to the law program were disproportionately white. The demographics did not represent the demographics of New York City. And there wasn't enough support and aid actually being given out to students of color. So this is an issue that I believe if it existed at CUNY Law, it's really possible that it exists across the board. So doing investigation on where the fellowships are going, who's benefiting the most from it, and then challenging that so that we can make sure that we bring in people into the graduate programs as well that come from marginalized communities and backgrounds from New York City, from other places around the world, and support them. So those are two immediate things that come to mind, but I'll definitely be in contact with other graduate students over the course of whether or not I win, but just being involved in USS to actually develop that more strongly. Thank you.
Thank you. Has Jacqueline been able to come back in?
I don't see her in as of yet, no.
Okay. All right, do we want to continue with the colleges, please?
Yes.
School of Labor and Urban Studies.
No question. Pass.
Brooklyn College. City College. Hunter College. John Jay College.
Again, I'm sorry. Again, if a college is choosing to pass on their opportunity to ask a question, I do need you to affirmatively state for the minutes that you're passing. A silence is not quite, given the forum that we're on right now, a silence could mean a multitude of things. So if you can affirmatively state pass, that would be incredibly helpful. Thank you.
I have a question.
John Jay has a question.
So if you're elected as Vice Chair of Graduate Affairs, what initiatives will you take to increase engagement within like CUNY students within the graduate programs and professional schools? Because actually the graduate students don't have so much engagement on their campus. So what initiatives will take to ensure there's increased engagement with graduate students?
Okay, so that question goes to Nadine, I believe.
Yeah, that's a great question. When I first came to CUNY Law, we also had that issue with engagement. Sometimes it feels like people just don't want to be involved, but I think that's not the case. I think that you have to make it so that it's easy for people to get involved. And once you initially break that ice, that engagement will come. So I believe in creating systems, mechanisms, or communication methods to where this level of engagement can be easily established at the offset, whether it's chat, group chats or threads. It could be more formal, like having a graduate school meet and greet. For either, it could be formal where it's the student government bodies of these graduate schools, or it could just be for all the students. So I want to make a proposal that at the very least that the graduate schools of USS start to meet ourselves, open it up to our student governments generally, and then we can plan things for all students of the grad schools and continuing higher education can actually meet each other, can bring up issues to those representing them on graduate affairs. And somebody mentioned this idea before, but like having meetings and things like that, or events together, right, as the graduate school. So it's not everything just separated in silos. So that's one thing that comes to mind.
Okay, thank you. And I have to ask, is Jacqueline back on?
No, she is not. I am monitoring it. So I will definitely let you know when she comes in.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you so much, Ivani. All right, next college, next question.
Lehman.
Pass at this time.
Thank
Medgar
you.
Evers. New York City Tech. Sorry, Medgar Evers.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Medgar Evers. Can I move on if no one's here from Medgar?
Yes.
Okay.
New York City Tech.
Yeah, so Nardine, this is a question I have. I'm not a graduate student, but I've noticed from observing how the college relates to graduate students, a lot of the time it treats them as non-students, especially since a large amount of that body also becomes employed by CUNY at some point. So they're sort of in this weird space. And so a lot of the times the administration seems to like distance them and treat them as other than students. I was wondering how you'd work to like better relations between administration and faculty and the graduate students, to make this more accommodating to graduate students.
I know that graduate students have been struggling for a long time at CUNY, fighting for fairness and equality with all the things you mentioned, even adjuncts as well, which many grad students become or are adjuncts. So these are things that I've been fighting for at CUNY ever since I was an undergraduate. I mean, it's no longer just fight for 15 now, because 15 is not enough compared to like 2013 when we were fighting for it. But that's something that we were fighting for staff on campus, as well as pay parity for adjuncts. So, I just mentioned that to say that I'm willing to take leadership from students who are in these positions where they're employed and oftentimes exploited by the university, by the administration, which also, they're forced into it because this also is where they're going to get their degree on, where they rely on their livelihood from. So just whatever labor unionizing, any other efforts that these graduate students are taking, this is something that, you know, I would definitely support. And I'll also look into it myself, just in general, to see what issues there are now, since I think the ebbs and flows of organizing for this are constantly shifting, especially since the pandemic. But I believe there are CUNY-wide coalitions that are working or talking about these issues. And I think we should connect with them and learn from the history of CUNY struggles to be able to support them the most.
Okay, thank you. Next college, next question.
Queens College,
Pass.
College of Staten Island,
Pass.
York College, BMCC,
Pass.
Bronx Community,
Pass.
Gutman,
Pass, please.
Hostos,
I just wanted to ask if being that we still in a pandemic, how do you plan to address the need of the credit, no credit option, because you know, it could actually still help students that's struggling because of you know, whatever reason.
That's a great question. And, you know, just to be a little bit personal with you for a second, is the second the pandemic hit, as soon as they started offering pass or credit, no credit on my campus, I've actually exclusively taken that route. So, you know, I'm always choosing to do like pass, fail, credit, no credit option. I never want my letter grades. So I totally 100% feel you on that. I think, you know, the conditions that led us to choosing and working on credit, no credit in the first place still exist. We're still not back on campuses. Some people moved away. There's still so much inequality that it would be absolutely unfair to go back to the letter grading system for this. And I think in general, even without the pandemic, this is something that we should reconsider. At our experience with the law school, some people were hesitant to get rid of letter grades, but there are actually a lot of schools that don't do that and do have pass fail options year round without a pandemic. So yeah, I just say that to say this is something that I support really, really much. I support a lot. And I hope that we can continue to see what options we can keep around for credit, no credit, even after the pandemic. But while the pandemic is here, yes, credit, no credit is a must in my book.
Okay, next college, next question.
Kingsborough,
No question for
LaGuardia.
Kingsborough.
LaGuardia, QCC.
Pass.
That ends the roll call.
Thank you. All right.
Brooklyn College has a question.
I'm sorry, who has a question?
Brooklyn College.
Okay.
So question, Nardine, kind of returning the kind of like similar question to what you gave me. Based on what we've seen in the past few months, the PSC has decided to go through with some resolution that triggered mass resignations of approximately at least 200 faculty that I know about. Tommy, do you think that the USS, should they be involved in doing the same thing that the PSC has done, passing resolutions that might alienate students and have the distraction that we had last year?
First of all, I didn't address any particular question towards any person. There are multiple people running for chair, multiple people that were answering questions, but I'm the only available person right now for this position that's answering questions. So there's, you know, a bit of a difference there. I also think that, you know, standing up for, you know, people have said this before me, standing up for human rights, standing up for what's right. You know, no matter what you do, people are going to have a problem with it. either way. I think it's important that we are consistent, just like we, support people's human rights here in the United States, from police brutality, from other things. We should also support human rights of people across the world who are facing similar issues. So I don't think that, that this should be a distraction. If it's such a distraction, then, our university shouldn't be complicit in things that would make students fight and question this in the first place. And I think the actual distraction comes from people who want to silence people who are fighting for human rights. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Lehman College has a question.
Okay.
Aaron danced around it a bit. I'm going to be very straightforward, and I just want a yes or no. Do you support BDS?
First of all, I actually wanted to bring this up from the beginning of this.
I want a yes or no.
Call. Please don't interrupt me, because I actually thought that from the beginning that only graduate students are supposed to ask graduate people running for the graduate chair position questions when it comes to that. And of course, I support BDS, I support Palestinian human rights, and I support Palestinians on the ground demanding how they want those human rights to be met. BDS adheres to international laws that, even the US agrees, settlements are illegal. People, we saw them fighting all over the summer, all over the country for these human rights. So yes, I support the human rights of the Palestinian people and of all people, not just Palestinians, and BDS will bring us to that. So yeah, I support it, although I do believe that this question is out of line, and I actually think this whole questioning process may be incorrect. If someone would like to please check that for me. Thank you.
Nardine, I do agree with you. I was just—
Wait a minute, there's no debate here. You asked a question, she answered it.
No, I was agreeing.
Well, there's no follow-up. There's no follow-up. But just to let you know, Nardine, I also had the same question. I checked with Joseph, and we could not find anything in the bylaws which says that schools that do not have graduate programs could not ask a question. So that's why we've allowed folks who don't have graduate or are not from graduate schools to be asking these questions. Though historically in the past, we thought that might have been the case. So just so you understand that, it's not like we're trying to change any rules here. We can't find in the language that restricts questions for specific types of candidates.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions from any of the colleges who have not already asked questions? Okay.
Graduate Center.
I'm sorry. You have
the
a question?
Graduate Center, City
Okay.
University, New York, has a question.
Okay.
I suppose you better start the clock at a minute, and I'll hope that I can get this done because it's a little bit complicated. There was mention in the response to the last one of the last questions, which I strongly agree with, the idea that all people have a right to advocate for themselves. Graduate work is highly individualistic. We pursue our own research ideas. A part of that is based upon the principle of freedom of speech. In certain campuses, advocacy has become, in some cases, highly aggressive and highly contentious. And I don't say that this is necessarily a bad thing, but what I would ask is, in what ways do the different candidates view freedom of speech as important to the Graduate Center's mission and to their advocacy for it in this body?
I think sorry.
No, I was simply going to call your name. That's all, Nadine.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I completely agree with that 100%. I've actually been championing freedom of speech at Cuny ever since I've been a student here. For if it wasn't obvious already. And as mentioned before, I'm president of Students for Justice in Palestine at Cuny Law Now. I helped found the College of Staten Island chapter in 2013. And I've been pulled into endless meetings. I've had to hire lawyers. I've been threatened with expulsion, with suspension. I've had my organization suspended, all to which, nothing bad ended up happening because after every investigation, after every meeting, whatever CUNY campus that was looking into me at the time said that actually you're right, this is a matter of freedom of speech and this is your freedom of speech. So having experienced that firsthand, I know the kind of freedom of expression that's limited. The chilling of expression is what they call it. So even if they don't outright tell you, you can't say this because this is a public university and they can't tell us to do that, they will use aggressive tactics to make you fear, doing that. And as a law student and a future lawyer, this is exactly the kind of work that I'm already involved in and that I want to continue to be involved in, is championing the freedom of speech rights for students on campus, because oftentimes, these things aren't applied fairly. They're not applied across the board. And oftentimes the most marginalized and oppressed people are the ones who have their freedom of speech taken away first and the most. So thank you for bringing that up. I think if we talk about academic freedom, we can't do that without talking about freedom of speech. And there is no academia, there is no true fairness in academia without that. So I'm 100% for that, and we'll do whatever it takes to ensure that students have their freedom of speech.
Okay, thank you. Any other college who have not spoken yet have any questions? Okay, and has Jacqueline returned?
No, she has not. We could just
Okay.
proceed to the next position.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next position, so Vice Chair for Senior College Affairs. I'm now opening up the question and answer session. How many candidates do we have for this position?
One candidate.
One candidate, okay. Can you please go down the roll of the colleges to see who has questions?
CUNY Graduate Center.
No, we have no questions.
CUNY Law.
None from our end.
CUNY SPS.
Pass.
School of Public Health.
No question.
School of Labor and Urban Studies.
Pass at this time.
Baruch College. Baruch. Brooklyn College.
Pass.
Pass. City College.
Pass.
Hunter.
Pass.
John Jay.
Pass.
Pass. Lehman.
Pass.
Medgar Evers. New York City Tech.
Pass.
Queens College.
Pass.
College of Staten Island.
Pass.
York.
Pass.
DMCC.
Pass.
Bronx Community.
Pass.
Gutman.
Pass, please.
Hostos.
Pass.
Kingsborough.
Pass.
LaGuardia. Queens Community. That concludes the roll call.
Thank you. Okay, so that closes the question and answer session for the Vice Chair for Senior College Affairs. And we're opening that for the Vice Chair for Community College Affairs. How many candidates do we have?
We have 2 candidates.
Okay. Can you please remind everyone of their names and then commence the college roll call?
Nana Owusu and Jasmine Ramirez.
Okay.
CUNY Graduate Center. CUNY Law.
Pass.
I'm sorry, I had a
CUNY
point of,
S.
I'm sorry, I just want to make a note that I believe the rules stipulate that for community colleges, only schools with a community college division can ask questions at this time.
Where did you find that, Corey?
It was in rule, it's in the bylaws.
Could you have the article number and the section?
Section 3.2 under nominations procedures, C3. It states with respect to the officer positions of vice chairs for community colleges and vice chairs for evening and part-time student affairs, only colleges with a delegate or alternate from the above mentioned divisions may ask a question of the candidates for the officer position for their respective divisions.
Excellent. Does it also have any language there about graduate schools?
No, it's only restricts the position for vice chair of community colleges and vice chair for evening and part-time.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I'll move
So
forward.
Robin,
Just call them community colleges.
Yeah, just call on the community colleges. I was going to say that, but Corey beat me to it.
Thank you. BMCC.
Pass.
Bronx Community. Gutman.
Yes, I do have a question. I think when it comes to community colleges in CUNY, we are slightly behind in terms of having the associate degree in 2 years. So, and my question specifically is related to the assumption that community colleges is mainly for minority communities. Maybe because perhaps there's like this name community in it. So as the person or people running for vice chair for community colleges, in your role as a chairperson, what can you do to get rid of this myth and this assumption to show to the people that all students that community colleges belongs to everyone? It's not for people who are from poor communities or from minority communities. Is there for all type of people. And secondly, the quality of education in community colleges, what can we do to improve that as well?
Jasmine? Hello?
Sorry about that. Thank you, Bashir, for asking that question. When it comes to people's image on community college, you're right. They do have the perception that this is lower than going into a senior college or an upstate or out-of-state college. But the reality is that a lot of people can benefit from being in a community college because of how close-knit we are. The amount of attention that we provide to our students is vastly different than college in a senior setting. So, we have a lot more programs available for our students. We have a lot more, the SG has a lot more interaction with their students and a lot more programs available for them, just clubs and activity wise. So I don't believe a lot of people know or understand that. And I didn't realize that myself when I first became a community college student, but I do understand that now. And I believe that with marketing and just creating more awareness will help other people understand, like, this doesn't mean that you're less of a person just because you came to a community college. Martin Luther King went into a community college. A lot of our outstanding individuals in the society came from community college. It doesn't make you any less of a person. And as it comes for quality improvement, we will have to fight that here on USS because I'm fighting it as a SGA president and it's tough. But with the support of USS, we could definitely make it. Thanks.
Okay, same question, next candidate.
All right, so I would like to thank you for asking this question. In fact, this is one of the greatest misconception about community colleges, that those who go there are either dumb or it's not for the best students. No, it doesn't work that way. So as you all may know, earlier, right, when I was accepting the nomination, I talked about and 9 billion, right? So there is this 9 billion that I would want us to work on. And this is for retention and completion grant for programs modeled after Cuny and ACE initiatives. So ASAP is a program to help students, right, graduate in 2 years. So if the retention rate in Cuny is high and we can get these students to graduate on time, then this will also change the negative perception that people have about community colleges. Also, we need to educate the public because this is misconception. We have to tell them that what they are hearing is never true. And we can let them know about some public figures that went to community colleges and they made it. With that, what do? We inspire them. But if the people, if these high school students don't know about these people, they will not believe us. And this is when I talk to people, then I bring science, show me how and why. And this is letting the students, right, know about these people. As she stated that Martin Luther King also went to community college. So I think this is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next college.
I'm sorry, what school was that I left off? If
Gutman.
anybody can remember?
Alexa.
Thank
Oh,
you
no,
very
sorry.
much.
No, I was wrong, Robin. What
Huh?
college was it
Hostos?
that asked the question?
Was it Hostos that just asked the last question?
I believe it was Gutman. Bashir asked it.
Thank you.
Gutman.
Hostos,
Pass.
Kingsborough, LaGuardia,
Pass.
Queens Community. That concludes the roll call.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so that concludes the question and answer period for the Vice Chair for Community College Affairs. We're now opening that for Vice Chair for Evening and Part-Time Affairs. And just a reminder, only those colleges where they have this particular division can actually ask questions. Do we want to commence the roll call? Actually, before we do that, how many candidates do we have?
2.
Okay, do we want to commence the roll call now?
Okay, I just want to, so I'm calling all schools for this position, right? Thank you. Okay.
No, it's the ones that have the evening division in their colleges. But I'm not sure we're going to know who those are. And we also need to know the names of the candidates that are answering questions for this position.
Okay. The names of the candidates are Muslima Abdul and Daniel Sani.
But they were the one who nominated the people. It's Diane and Jamie.
I'm sorry.
Lerner.
My apologies.
No,
apologies.
she had it right to begin with.
She got it right.
Thank you. Thank you. And can we not interrupt in the middle? Thank you. How can I move forward with calling the schools if I'm not certain of who has a part-time and evening division?
I say we just call the schools. Because we don't know what.
Yeah, go ahead, Robin, since we don't know. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Cuny Graduate Center,
Pass, thank you.
Cuny Law,
Pass.
Cuny SPS,
Pass.
School of Public Health,
Pass.
School of Medicine, sorry, School of Labor and Urban Studies, my apologies. Baruch College,
Pass.
Brooklyn College,
Pass.
City College,
Pass.
Hunter College,
Pass.
John Jay,
I have a quick question. I'm part of John Jay. So it's a two-part question. The first being, what are the obstacles you believe the evening and part-time students are facing? And then the second part, how will you address these issues?
Okay, I'm sorry if I don't know if I'm massacring these names, but so will you just jump in there and any one of the candidates take the lead and just pronounce the names just to make sure that I get it correct from this point on?
Sure. My name is Muslima. The obstacles that I personally feel, watching my mother and other CUNY part-time and evening students, is they don't have financial support. They don't have accessibility to some libraries because they close early. They don't have the ability to network on their campus because I know personally at QC, most of our networking happens at free hour, which is 12:15 to 1:30. They're working. They don't have time to come to that. Or they may not be on campus. Queens College is a really far campus if no one knows. So like, it's really hard for someone just to come to campus just for like a 1 hour event. So that's the things that I personally feel that are obstacles. Obviously they are, but I feel like those are the ones that I have the ability to change right now. There are many more. I'm open to criticism and people tell me other obstacles that part-time and evening students face. The way I would combat this, one, I'm trying to do this at my college now, have networking events in the afternoon. Have them on Saturday, Sunday, where most people work a 9 to 5, which is Monday through Friday. They have the ability to come. Extend your library hours, extend your administration hours, extend your financial aid hours. So these students can't have the ability to them. They are CUNY students and they should have the same accessibility that full-time students have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate.
I believe the other candidate is Daniel from the School of Professional Studies. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not see him here. One of his reps reached out, so
Okay.
I guess proceed with the school and I'll keep an eye out if he does come in the Zoom room.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, next college.
Medgar Evers, New York City Tech.
Yes, hi. Actually, you sort of hinted into what I was going to ask. So basically, Muslima, I know there's like a huge gap between the amount of part-time and evening students registered, and they're usually in the most economically disadvantaged. They're usually single mothers, statistically speaking. Although a lot of other students take up that, by majority, they take up a lot of the part-time and evening slots. And the fact they don't get the financial assistance they need is highly like problematic. I'm gonna put that as a nice way to say it. How would you plan on like addressing this with like the administration?
Okay, as I mentioned in my speech earlier, my mom was that single mom that she's talking about that struggle with financial stability. I personally feel the easiest and the most appropriate option, free CUNY tuition. It's simple. Let's free CUNY tuition. We can get it passed. If we go to our legislative, if we go to our senators and we force them to pass this bill, it's simple, gets rid of it for life. We will never have this issue ever again.
Okay, thank you. Next college.
Queens College. College of Staten Island.
Pass.
York College. BMCC. Bronx Community.
Pass.
Gutman.
Pass, please.
Hostos.
Pass.
Kingsborough.
Pass.
LaGuardia. And Queens Community College.
Pass.
That concludes the roll call.
Okay, thank you. And has Daniel returned?
No, he has not.
He has not.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so that closes the question and answer period for the Vice Chair for Evening and Part-Time Affairs position, and I'm now opening that for the vice chair for disability affairs. How many candidates do we have?
3. We have
Okay.
Jamie Lerner, Bircher, Matthew Irings, and Saif Alam.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. All right. Okay, can we go down the colleges?
Cuny Graduate Center.
Sorry, pass. Apologies, my computer sometimes doesn't respond. Pass.
Cuny Law.
Pass.
Cuny SPS.
I'm gonna pass because I think I'm the only one here.
School of Public Health.
Pass.
School of Labor and Urban Studies.
Yes, I want to ask a question in regards to that.
Okay. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, in regards to students with disability, I remember when I was EWS and vice chair, vice president at Queens County, we were dealing with disability issues in regards to transportation. And some of these disabilities weren't that visible, but the buses that were picking up the kids weren't that adequate to deal with disability children. How would you address that issue in regards to visible and invisible disabilities? How would you address getting proper transportation to transport these kids, these students back and forth from school to from their home to college?
Okay, Jamie?
Sure. So I'm a person where my disability is mostly invisible. I've had to use a wheelchair for short periods of time, but for the most part, it is invisible. I hate to use Leonard's name again, but Leonard is on the board, and he's been doing great work in terms of getting Access-a-Ride stations at other colleges. I also know the person who founded Access-a-Ride, and I would work in conjunction with her as well to try to get it. Unfortunately, the process for getting accepted into Access-a-Ride is out of the scope of CUNY, but that doesn't mean that I wouldn't push them to try to make it easier for people with invisible disabilities to get on it. I also think that as we're revamping subway stations, the priority for which stations should be accessible are the ones that have CUNY students going back and forth between them, because the subway is often the best way to get around, even if it's not very accessible. And the fact that there are massive stations with students that are unable to get anywhere because of lack of an elevator is ridiculous. And when they're prioritizing adding elevators into stations, I think we should be pushing in order to get those stations. I also think that Access-a-Ride is a big issue, and we're currently hosting the DAC, which I'm co-president of, is currently hosting an event, and we will have somebody from Access-a-Ride on there, and part of it is to hold them accountable to ask how they are going to make changes in the future. So I'm already on that.
Okay, thank you. Matthew?
First, I would like to thank Ronan for the question. And as Jamie said before, I would work to have the Access-a-Ride for every campus, and then I would try to push to have multiple meetings with the MTA about creating more accessible bus stations and subway stations, even if it involves them to have to invest into having elevators or ramps for people in wheelchairs. I yield my time.
Thank you. Saeed?
Yes, hi. So I have connections with elected official Andrew Granardis and a couple of other elected officials, the city council officials. So what I will be doing is I will be working with elected officials. I will be working with MTA. I'm also part of the community. We're working with community leaders to ensure that there is more accessible rides that is accessible for CUNY students with physical disabilities. I can agree with Jamie that there is like a lack of issues regards to like to show the signage of the students with invisible or visible disability, but to ensure that there is more accessibility for students with those spectrums, to ensure that students can access to those transportation and actually have a more inclusive space, inclusive transportation, and able to ride those. And I have a lifelong invisible disability since I was born, but we want to make sure that this is the transportation is inclusive. So I'll be working my elected officials, MTA, and the community. So that's yes. All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next callers, next question.
Baruch, Brooklyn College,
Yes.
City College, Hunter,
Pass.
John Jay,
Pass.
Lehman,
What? Yes, I wanted to know if either of you have either worked in an office for students with disabilities as an. Oh, I think I was muted. I wanted to know if either of you have either worked in an office of students for disabilities as an intern, or if you have engaged with the office in another way.
Okay, Saeed?
Yes, I did have close engagements as a student government representative. And with the Office of Accessibilities, I have been having close connections with my accessibility. One of the issues that we were working on is hiring a lead advisor to help, like in my local campus, John Day students for career readiness. There is a vacancy on the lead advisor. Career readiness seems to be a huge issue for students with disabilities, and I have been part of the search committee process in my local campus and working with the disability director. I have a very close relation with the disability director at my local campus to ensure that students with disabilities get like better career readiness. So, and also I have like connections regards to like image impact, like first like this students with disabilities program. So I do have very close ties with the disability directors and the staff members in the disability center.
Thank you. Matthew?
So I would like to thank you for that question. And in my high school, I had a major impact because my school had a room dedicated for students with accommodations of having extra time, and that room was a complete mess. I don't want to get into the details of it, but I was being the voice for them to either get the room done over or for the students to find more room. Currently now in City Tech, I'm part of the disability center because when I was in elementary school all the way to high school, I have an IEP in which says that I have extra time, and I was helping with all in the office with the best I can for any certain accommodations.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, Jamie.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in my speech before, as an undergraduate, I had bi-monthly meetings with our director of Office of Disabilities, and I worked very closely with her. Now, as I said before, I'm the co-president of the Disability and Access Coalition. 2 of the 3 people who work in our Office of Disabilities office are members of the committee, non-voting members, but still. I'm currently working with Chris Lydon, who is one of the people in those offices, to create a disability training for faculty. This is something that I'm extremely involved with. Like I said, my major is disability studies. One of the other programs is a disability services master, and a lot of the classes overlap. So not only have I worked with the offices, I've also taken a lot of the classes that it takes to become somebody who works in those offices. Additionally, a lot of the students in my class are people who work in offices at other schools. So I would say I've worked incredibly closely, and I have weekly meetings with Chris Lydon about these things. Probably so much involvement that maybe they're starting to get a little bit annoyed with me.
Okay, thank you. Next callers, next question.
Lehman, excuse me, Mega Evers. City Tech.
Yes, okay, thank you. So my question is this: intersectionally speaking, there is a lot of like problems in marginalized communities, and disabilities is no different. I know for a fact from talking to different people that sexual harassment, oh, well, experiencing too, but sexual harassment, Title IX, they're all a lot higher in people with disabilities. In fact, there's a high amount of unspoken sexism within the disability community, and this is very problematic. We even find it in offices, surprise, surprise, where it's looked past. My question is, how would you deal as the next vice chair of disability affairs, how would you deal with these issues? Because disabilities isn't just flat down, I have an invisible disability and that's it. I guess that's the length of the question.
My
Okay, Matthew?
Well, first off, thank you for that amazing question, Abigail. And the main way I would tackle the issue is to create an environment of where all students are the same, no matter no matter your gender, your skin color, your age, we should all be treated equally. And I will create facilities within each community campus that if someone is being harassed about anything for who they are, I will create it so that they can report it and proper action can be done. And I yield my time.
Okay, Saeed?
Yes, thank you for that question. So I can say I'm a Muslim man, a API person with an invisible disability, so intersectionality does apply. We have like Muslim students and API persons who are marginalized. So, like my friends from those communities who doesn't get a job. So I think making sure that they receive those like representation and also awareness to make sure that they are treated equally as everyone else. And also it's very common that women with disabilities are more likely to face gender-based violence than women without a disability. So I want to make sure that we educate, create like joint forum, and make sure that we promote a safe space and for those who have those intersectionalities. So like there's a lot of intersectionalities like people from LGBTQ communities and many and so forth. But making sure that we work as organizations and we work with many different communities to bridge that gap. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, thank you so much. And Jamie?
So I actually started my college career at a women's college. So I was knee deep in feminist theory and the intersectionals there. And so I completely agree that it's a massive issue and it's something that needs to be changed culturally. I also want to add that a huge issue in general with going into the Office of Disability Services, especially for poor and people with multiply marginalized identities, is that the barrier to get documentation in is extremely high. In order to get documentation in, that means you have to have already had a doctor's diagnosis and come in with those documentations. I think City College is actually a really great example of a school that sits down with you for an hour, your first appointment, and they ask you what you need before they even require documentation. And I think that that's something that wealthier, whiter people who come in with 504s and IEPs into colleges, or people who come directly from high school into college, that's something that they don't come to issues with. But I think that for most of the people, especially in Cuny, that it's a massive issue. And I think that the barrier for documentation should be lower. I understand why documentation would be needed for something like extended time, where there's a history in this country of people, especially wealthy white people, cheating and pretending to have disabilities there in order to get extra time. But I think that for the vast majority of things, including extremely cheap technology where you get an account for like a reader online, is something that most people are not cheating to get. And I don't understand why the barrier is so large to get that, because it's not something that people would cheat on, and to require a massive amount of doctor's paper is completely unfair, especially to those people who do not have adequate medical insurance. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Next college, next question, please.
Sorry, Queens College,
Pass.
College of Staten Island,
Oh, okay. So my question is, it's good that you're talking.
Hello?
And Marwan, you're muted.
Never mind, sorry. There's issues in the back of my house, sorry. Pass.
York College, BMCC,
Pass.
Bronx Community,
Pass.
Gutman,
Pass, please.
Hostos,
Pass.
Kingsborough,
Pass.
LaGuardia, Queens Community College.
Pass.
That concludes roll call.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we'll close-
Give me 1 second, Lucas. Jonathan
Sure.
Hannon, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question for these candidates. Jonathan
From the
Hannon,
Grad
Graduate
Center.
Center. So, as I mentioned in my own campaign speech earlier, in doctoral programs, students with disabilities are often given difficulties in their accommodations. Even when we work with the disability office, our programs still give us difficulty in getting these accommodations applied. One thing I need to ask of these candidates is, how do you plan to address this in order to make sure that doctoral students are given proper accommodations? Because when we think about accommodations, usually we don't think about them on such a graduate level, but every single level of education needs accommodations for disabled students.
Jamie?
So long term, I am planning on getting my doctorate, and this is something that I'm thinking about very greatly in terms of what schools I'm applying to, because I acknowledge that it's a massive issue. Ideally, I would love for funding to be a little bit more stretched out, especially because it's a massive barrier, especially for students that need to make it have longer time periods. I also think that this is an example where faculty training is really important, because in doctoral programs, you're not working with the Office of Disability Studies, you're working one-on-one with individual professors. And if your advisor and if someone on your committee is not amenable to disabilities and doesn't understand why deadlines might need to be stretched or why other things happen, I think that's where it's incredibly important that a robust knowledge and basis of disability and disability law and what they're legally required to do, but also in general, what they should be doing is incredibly important. I can't fix the funding issue overnight. I'm not even going to promise to do that, because I don't think that that's within my capacity. I will certainly try. But in terms of trying to get professors trained, my immediate rollout program, which I've gotten funding for, I've put together a committee to get this program in a beta version at SPS. I'm doing it in terms of qualitative and quantitative data. My paper is based on the fact that professor training gets better grad retention for graduation rates for students. And I think that that's when you sell it to university, that's what they want to hear, how to keep their students. So I've done that with this in mind. If it works and if the data bears out, which according to other studies, it should. I want to push for it to be CUNY wide and for it to be a required training for all professors to have, just like they need equity and access training, just like they need gender discrimination training. And I think the fact that disabilities is being disregarded in this is absolutely unfair, because it's just as much of an issue as everything else. So I would start with the individual professors, but I would definitely try to make it a systematic change. I definitely am looking for ways to do that as well from other people, and would love to hear any input, because it's something that, as somebody who's looking towards my doctoral, it's an issue that's on my mind as well. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Saeed.
So one thing I will work with is I work with the graduate students like directors across CUNY, also the University Faculty Senate. Personally, I'm a graduate student, so it's sometimes unfortunate that we get, as graduate students, limited accommodations. as graduate students with disabilities. It's a big difference. So making sure that enforcing the faculty development training, working with academic curriculum committees, and to enforce faculty development trainings through the University Faculty Senate, and ensure that they are trained to provide better accommodations for students with disabilities at the graduate level, also PhD students, so students can definitely have a better opportunity to succeed on their college career. So I already have been vocalizing on this, like in a CUNY-wide scale, but I am more than willing to commit to those changes as if elected as Vice Chair of Disability Affairs. Thanks.
Thank you. And Matthew.
So I'm gonna piggyback off of what both Jenny and Saif said. So of course I would also create more trainings for all teachers and staff. And then if I'm able to have the funding, I would put a disability center into every single CUNY for every student, no matter their point of degree, to have their accommodations for either extra time or so on or so forth. I yield my time.
Thank you. Any other colleges who have not asked any questions have any questions? Okay, so seeing no hands, I'm closing this section for the Vice Chair for Disability Affairs and moving on to Vice Chair for International Student Affairs.
Which is Diane M. Lake.
Okay, Diane and Blake. Can we go down the roll call of colleges? with
Diane had an
disabilities?
emergency and had to step out. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, so can we start the roll call, please?
Is Diana is the only,
She's the only candidate, is one candidate.
so we have to move to the next position because she's not here now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. Okay. Then the final position, Vice Chair for Technology Fee Affairs. How many candidates?
We have two candidates, Marwan Mahmood and Jonathan Hannon.
Okay, can we go down the colleges, please?
CUNY Graduate Center,
Pass. Thank you.
CUNY Law,
Pass.
CUNY SPS,
Circle back, maybe.
School of Public Health,
Pass.
School of Labor and Urban Studies,
Yes, I have a question. Go
Okay,
ahead. Can I go
okay,
ahead?
yes.
All right, I'm gonna address this to both candidates, but you're talking about all the improvements that CUNY needs in technology, and where our technology fee is not being utilized properly. What is your game plan in addressing the issues you mentioned? And how do you plan on fixing all these inadequacies in the system in regards to technology and student use, Wi-Fi use, access to Wi-Fi and internet service and all that? Thank you.
Moa? Hello?
I don't think Marwan is on this call.
Marwan just reconnected. He's here.
Oh, he's reconnected?
I don't think he heard the question, though. It may have to be repeated.
Okay. Marlon, please repeat the question for him. So you
Yes,
can-
I was saying in regards to all the issues you say that now exist in CUNY in regards to technology, the uses of student technology fees and people getting laptops and people who have internet service and inadequate web design for the CUNY webpage and all that. How do you plan on addressing, what's your game plan in regards to giving students the technology service they need in regards to incompatible to the technology fees they're paying. How do you plan on fixing that?
Marwan?
Marwan?
You don't need to raise your hand. You can just answer.
I don't think he's hearing us. It will not let him unmute. I'm not sure why it won't. I'm asking you to unmute yourself. Can you unmute yourself?
Can we move on to Jonathan until tomorrow?
Yes, let's do that. Let's go ahead and move on to Jonathan.
Okay.
I'm asking him to start, but I'm asking him to unmute. I'm not sure why it's not working.
Oh, okay.
I've clicked on his name several times.
Is he
Accidentally.
visually there?
I don't know.
Hold on, my doorbell just rang.
I don't know if he's by phone or
Right.
I'm clicking to ask him to unmute and it's not letting him. He's not unmuting. He's by phone, that's why, I believe. He should be able to unmute. Yeah, try to rejoin. Jonathan's back, Chris. I don't know if you want to move forward with Jonathan while we wait for Marwan.
Okay. Jonathan, can you go ahead?
Yes, so when it comes to how we can use the technology fee in order to fix all of these things, first we need to look at the technology fee and see where are the redundancies in what we are using the technology fee for. If we're using multiple different platforms for a service, why are we using those multiple different platforms? Like at the beginning of the pandemic, we were using both Cisco, Zoom, and Blackboard Connect. Why do we have all of these redundancies? Why are we spending on so many different systems when we can utilize one system for all of them? And those redundancies would be able to be reduced and we'd be able to use the student tech fee in order to advance what we need to use on the actual infrastructure on the campuses. Why are we wasting all of this funding when we can utilize it elsewhere? And so in order to address those pitfalls, what we can do is use that budget that we have from those redundancies and apply it where it's actually useful.
Okay, thank you. Is Marwan available now or?
Yes, I
Marwan?
am. I fixed it.
Okay, he's good.
All right, so should I answer the question?
Yes, please.
All right, so a core issue I noticed in the College of Staten Island was not necessarily funding, because as a finance commissioner, I could see the funding of my school personally. It was really a lack of access. And the primary reason it was students couldn't access is either their home life was too insecure or whatever CSI offered locally was a little too niche. Like you could only go in certain parts of the building. There is a student center in which students can have their laptops, their phones, and have part of the computer lab open to them and allow them to use essentially free Wi-Fi and internet. The only problem is it's relatively small compared to our population. So what we do is expand it. I also agree with him with the redundancies, but that's really more professor issue usually because certain professors have a preference. What I think is the core issue I think he perhaps missed is that the idea is that if you don't, no matter how much diversity you have to have a clear implementation. CSI tried to implement it prior, and I assume similar other schools to catch up with the pandemic, but they failed to get a consistent view on what the students want. I know for a fact that students who come in person because they're vaccinated will love a place where they can have internet consistently, not just a corner of the school. So what we can do as the USS is essentially advocate for students and ask them, do you have sufficient regions where you can get Wi-Fi outside of a computer lab? If they say yes, then we can explore what further complications, maybe that their broadband is too low, and then we can push funding for that. Or if they don't, which I think is the considerable issue, we can expand and develop those places where people can collaborate with Wi-Fi, talk to their families if they need to, have stronger connections. They can have classes in those areas if they need to, such as if they have a long distance class and they want to do it in the school. I know, for example, I have 2 classes back to back. And it would help me immensely if I could go to one class in person, and while I'm waiting for my ride home, I could start my class on my phone while sitting down. Flexibility needs to be given to the students because the students are the primary concern for the USS and the central foundation for our school. If they're not given every benefit they have, then we have failed as a school. I think my school has failed in certain regards in relation to its finances. And I think as part being working with the USS, I can get a new perspective working with many other CUNYs and do a, overcome a common adversarial goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next college, next question.
Baruch College. Oh.
I was gonna just ask another question in regards to that, because I didn't hear anyone address the
Each
marginalized
college
students.
only gets one question,
Oh,
Marlon.
sorry, okay.
Okay, thank you. Next college, next question.
Baruch. Brooklyn College. City College. Hunter College. John Jay. Lehman.
Lehman College. Sanjay has a question.
Oh,
Saif had his hand up first. I was watching. Go ahead, Saif, and then Lehman.
So my question for the candidates for Vice Chair of Technology Affairs, technology accessibility is a pretty huge issue for students with disabilities. Students with disabilities trouble regards to virtual accommodations and so forth. So what initiatives will you take as Vice Chair of Technology to ensure that students with disabilities have better access to technology during this hybrid setting? So these are my questions.
Okay. Who would like to tackle that first? Jonathan?
If I went first, if Marwan wants to go first for this one, that would be okay.
Okay, Marwan?
Yeah, no, I thank you. I really appreciate that. So to enhance your question, I thought of a similar line as well. Many CUNYs, for example, are struggling with enrollment. And a concept I am planning, because I have a meeting with my school president, is that I want to make certain aspects of our pandemic life, the good aspects, obviously, a permanent feature for CSI. And I think that could reflect the CUNY. A big one I want to do is make online classes, or the concept of online classes, permanent. Many students with disabilities no longer have to spend costs for traveling, go through the inaccessible buildings. Sometimes some buildings aren't built for students with disabilities. So either they have to take a longer route, or sometimes there's even more complications with their classes. And students with disabilities are, the most vulnerable in our community. I talked about in my nomination that the pandemic revealed structural inequalities within our societal structures and our universal structures. As a result, we should emphasize that they should get precedence in certain affairs. Like I said before, our biggest issue is expanding online classes. So if we increase broadband, as I previously mentioned, not only do they now have the option specifically for them, they can be used as a test run to see, whether students like the concept of continuing online classes after the pandemic. Hopefully, if the pandemic ends by this year, fingers crossed. They can also be an emphasis to see how more social justice policies can be implemented within the USS, because I don't think there's any controversy with people directly helping with students with disabilities. So not only do they get a benefit, but the overall USS reflects better, because now we're showing that we can not only test certain new relatively radical concepts that the pandemic has forced us to employ, but shows that the most vulnerable students are getting the assistance that they need and deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Marwan. Jonathan?
So as I touched on in my own campaign speech, I actually worked with Saif on the Disability and Mental Health and Academic Affairs Committee to start looking at how we can actually try to enhance students' online experience while we are still online in the pandemic. Part of what we were looking at is, without having to even look at the tech fee, how can we make it that we can work with professors that they would actually start to accommodate students in a more accurate manner towards what they need for their accommodations. Part of it is like hearing impaired students. If a student is hearing impaired, they're going to need closed captioning on a class, just like we have here in this meeting. If you don't have closed captioning on a class, then if a student is hearing impaired, they will not be able to follow along with what you're talking about because they can't necessarily hear what you're saying. So for similar things, when we have students who need extended time online, what we need to make sure is that professors know how to provide these accommodations and do provide them adequately. And this is something that I do not feel we would need to utilize the tech fee at all on. We can just try working with disability offices in order to try working better with our students with disabilities for online classes. Now, we're not going to have these online classes to this extent forever because hopefully we'll be able to get back from the pandemic. But while we have these online classes, we need to make sure that students are adequately taken care of.
Okay, thank you. Next caller's next question.
All right. Marwan, in a previous answer, spoke about creating a space at every college where students can be in online classes if they're in between in-person classes or just have internet access generally. Well, Lehman has created such a space, which is wonderful, and I want every college to have it. What will the two of you do if elected to ensure that happens?
Okay, since you referenced a comment made by Marwan earlier, Marwan, do you want to tackle that first?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, that's great to hear. The idea, it's much easier to implement a plan or demonstrate a plan to, let's say, my president or members of CUNY itself when you have precedent, because now I can point at your college and now we can visualize it and see its effect. And we can also look at now financials. We can look at how much money it costs, whether the students actually think it's effective, and the general ambiance of the certain situation. So I'm ecstatic to hear that you actually have a working system now. And it shows that great minds think alike, that this is an issue that doesn't just affect my school, Staten Island, the smallest borough, but more larger schools overall. The first thing I would do is try to visit it in person if I could, or get a sort of virtual tour in which we could exchange data. You could explain the history of it, saying, oh, the student government in my school made this development and students really like it. And with that data, I can go to my president and try to implement it as a home rule system. We can go to USS overall and go to various other CUNYs, seeing whether they can afford the funding, whether they like the concept, whether it's applicable physically. For example, some colleges are physically smaller than others. So what works for one college may not easily work with another, but we can still get the concept going. So I think using you as an example, as a paragon example, would be a highly effective strategy. And I can say, well, now we're going to have our version in Staten Island. Now we're going to have it in Brooklyn. Now we're going to have it in the Bronx. And then continually put it while overall helping the students get more technological access and helping students who benefit from it overall feel better. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Yes, so I would completely agree with Marwan and a lot of these points. And one thing I would like to extend on is that at my campus, the Graduate Center, right now, we don't have any rooms really available in order that students can take their courses online. I've spoken to the student government about this. I've spoken to my department about this, and everyone is trying to make rooms available from their own allocations, such as the computer science department at the Graduate Center is working on making the thesis room available for students to take courses online. The DGSC, which is our Student Government Association, is working towards allowing our rooms to be used towards students being able to take courses online. But at the moment, there is no central initiative at the Graduate Center in order to be able to make students able to take these courses. Everything is coming from individual groups and being given around in order to allow these things to happen. So I agree about that. We should look at how things were set up at Lehman. And if we look at how things were set up at Lehman, maybe we can adapt that infrastructure in order to make it work at our local campuses. Now, at some campuses, this might not be perfect. Like at Brooklyn College, as I mentioned earlier, there are already wireless problems. And so we need to know where the best place on campus would be in order that the wireless infrastructure would be able to support this, because otherwise students won't be able to log in and be able to connect to their Zoom classes. If they disconnect while they're on campus, there will be no use of that space because the students won't be able to adequately use it. So I completely agree that we should look at how it was implemented at Lehman, and also that we should look at our current campus's infrastructure at how we can adapt it.
Okay, thank you. Next caller's next question.
Medgar Evers, New York City Tech.
Yes, sorry. Sorry to cut you off there. So my question happens to do with the disproportionate distribution of technology across CUNY, not only in the sense of the individual students that get it, but per campus, and also the obstacles. A lot of students, for example, are timed out from getting the technology loaners they mostly offer, like laptops and that, because the places will open at 10 a.m. and close at 3 p.m., which is way too early for most part-time and evening students who start later in the day. So they're basically timed out of that program because they can't make it. And no campus I heard of has like a mailer program where they'll send it right to the student, which is another thing. Accessibility, it would be nice to have that in some sort of way if it's a verified student. So I want to know how you'll engage like this conversation and make this more equitably available to all students throughout CUNY.
Jonathan?
Yes, absolutely. So one thing about that is what we can do is start to talk to our library staff at each of our campuses, who are typically the ones who are responsible for all of this, and see where their shortcomings are, why they're short-staffed, and how we can be able to expand their hours at all of their facilities in order that they can actually give these laptops to the students that are necessarily needing them. Because if there are students who are unable to get to the campus at those hours, or as Abigail did mention, not able to get to the campus at all due to mobility or other disabilities, how are they supposed to be able to get these laptops if they're not able to get to the library? If they have work at those hours, or if they're not able to get there because of an immunodeficiency and currently they're not able to get the vaccine because of a medical reason, then they're not able to come to campus right now because we don't have that herd immunity. And so if they can't get that technology, we're not able to get them their courses, and they still can't come to campus because of the vaccination requirements. And if they have any immunodeficiencies, then they also can't come, because if they get COVID, it will be a very serious case. So again, we do have to look at the facilities we have in terms of information technology and library at each of our campuses and see how we can expand their staffing in order to allow these things to happen.
Marwan?
So that was a very good point she expressed, and I appreciate you bringing it up. Overall, that was a good concept with the idea of accessibility. I don't want to push an anecdote, but I know for a fact my previous high school and even my previous middle school, I found out, gave out iPads to students via mail. So I'm surprised to hear that other CUNYs are not following a system that the DOE is.
Hello?
Did Marwan disconnect?
He's still on the call, but I think his sound went out. Marwan, I'm not sure if you can hear us, but we can't hear you.
Jasper,
Because
can you
there is no
stop the
reason.
clock?
Jasper, stop the clock.
But
So
again,
Okay.
we couldn't hear you. Everything you just said, we couldn't hear you.
oh, is it fine now?
Yeah, where you left off was where you were talking about DOE giving iPads, and you're surprised CUNY didn't give the same. That's where we last heard. That's what we last heard.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for telling me. I was going to go on without it. Okay. Should you start the clock again now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jasper, you can start
Okay.
the clock.
Okay. Thank you. So as I was saying, so the DOE can implement a similar system that it did to our high schools and middle schools if they're not within the CUNYs. I'm reading in the chat right now that some other CUNYs also implement the system. So it may just be unique to certain deficiencies locally. But if it's local, we're the USS, so we have to represent the whole of all students, even outside of our own borough. I believe CSI has a system, but it's a lot more localized because of, like you said, there's a limited deficiency. The way I think to get proportion is usually if there's deficiency locally and the other campuses cannot obtain it, is to go to the state. And as a result, we can lobby for the state saying, we need iPads, we need laptops, we need to let these put on a borrowing system because students, let's say with disabilities, can't access it. Students who have medical exemptions can't access the building. people who come from New Jersey. So you're going to travel to New Jersey to get a single iPad for a class and borrow it. That's a little too difficult for people who are struggling with transportation to begin with. So the overall system is to implement a similar system that is already done, reflect that infrastructure into our CUNYs that don't establish it, and any deficiency. Does the school need 100 more iPads? Is there a surplus of iPads in other schools? And then, fill in the gaps from there. Thank you.
Did Marwan finish or did he get cut off?
Marwan finished.
No, finished.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, next question.
Queens College, College of Staten Island, York College,
Pass.
BMCC,
Pass.
Bronx Community College,
Pass.
Gutman,
Pass, please.
Hostos,
Pass, please.
Kingsborough,
Pass, please.
LaGuardia, Queens Community College.
Pass.
That
Okay.
concludes the roll call.
Thank you so much. Okay, that concludes the last question and answer for the last position open. Are there any final pieces of business? Joseph?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Congratulations to all the nominees. What I will suggest is to you all, please go ahead back and read the email that Chair Lucrez sent. Rabins resent it. You have the document. You have the attachment. Read line by line. You have your date that your statements are due. Please make sure that you follow those dates and times, because once I receive those information, I'll let USERC know. If this person missed the deadline, I'll just send that information over to USERC and then they'll make the determination. In order so that you don't have to plead a case, read what was sent, do your best and pay close attention. If you are running for this position, then at this point in time, you need to make sure you are serious in reading the documents that is sent and check your school email. On top of it, the elections will be done by not the way we did it earlier, but a company called AAA. So more information will be sent regarding that. Look out for an email from Rabin Green. She'll be requesting a few information from you. Again, elections will be done through your email, college email. So please, if you haven't set up your college email, make sure you have that set up and have your ample IDs ready. More information on elections will follow. But congratulations to you all. And we will send a follow-up email regarding what was shared by Chair Lucrez, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
You go.
Well, congratulations to everybody who's still here. And I know this process is long, but I think it's worthwhile. And again, you'll see in that language that expresses, the policies about campaigning. Please observe them. And if you have a question, check in first rather than be disqualified for something that's just a mistake. But good luck to everybody. I'm looking forward to the elections.
Thank you, Hugo.
Madam Lucrez, Madam Lucrez will turn it over to Madam Chair Giovanni.
Yes. I'm moving over to Giovanni, please.
Thank you, Yusuf. Marwan, before I move forward, do you have a question? Okay. So what Joseph said and explained it per the information, because some people said they didn't get the information. So what we're going to do tomorrow, we're going to make sure everybody is going to be sent this information once again. So if you see by tomorrow night, you don't get anything, email me or email Robin Green if you don't get any email. So that's that. Thank you, Yusuf. It's been a long day. It's been 7 hours going to 8. So our goal is to get out of here before 8. I thank you to all the students who are sitting here and sticking it through. The next item on the agenda is announcements. So we'll be moving towards announcements. If you have an event going on your campus, if you have something that's going on, if you have whatever it may be on your campus, anything within the Cuny community related that you think your colleagues should know about, this is a time to do so, but please use the raise hand option. Jonathan Hannon, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I just wanted to make another announcement about the USS Scholarships Committee, just because we can't emphasize enough how much help we need on the scholarship committee. As we mentioned earlier, we still have about 600 applicants to review, each of whom needs 2 reviews. And so we could really use all the help we can get. We have a deadline of this Friday. And so anybody who can help at all, we could really use all of your help. Anybody who can do any reviews, 5 or 10, just please help us with anything you can. We want to make sure we get this done in order to get students the scholarships that they deserve. And we want to get the scholarships to the right students who deserve them. But we need to make sure that we finish the scholarships committee in order to do that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jamie Lerner.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody of the Maysoon Zaid event this Wednesday at 7 p.m. The DAC is hosting it, but it was co-hosted by the USS, and we're extremely grateful for that. I posted the link in the chat. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and it should be really fun. And as long as you have a CUNY email to register with, you can register. So we hope to see you there.
Yes, I remember when you all reached out a long time ago in the summer. That's like when the summer first started. Louis.
Yes, thank you, Giovanni. So real quick, just Brooklyn College had passed a joint resolution regarding students that were dropping. If anybody would like to pass a similar resolution on your campus and need a template, feel free to reach out to me. Just looking out for our students. That's it. Thank you. Thank you, Giovanni.
Thank you, Abigail.
Sorry. So I'd like to remind everyone, if we want to keep this vibe going, and I mean seriously going, you're all welcome to join us at CCSD Movies Night, the next one being Thursday, October 7th. The registration link is movies.ccsdadvocates.com. You can go there and register. Even at the night of the movie, it will ask for your accommodations, your email, your name, and your campus, because all registrations are secured.
Thank you, Abigail. I just want to make a point of reference. Professor Hugo Fernandez was incredibly nice and sent the campaign rules document in the chat, so you can extract that and look at that. You know, he was quick on that. So thank you for that. And with that being said, seeing or hearing no announcements, my only announcements is, I know it's a long day, but make sure you do your homework and make sure you drink some water, use the bathroom, and eat. I know, I have a stats exam, okay? I have a stats exam, so trust me. Trust me. So make sure you do that. And be on the lookout for the emails. I put my personal email in the chat. If you have any questions, inquiry, you need a contact to USERC or whatever it may be, email me. I respond as soon as I can.
Madam Chair, just a point of reference, just so that everybody knows, the email address that we are using is the email address that was provided to us by your campus. So you just know that that's what we are using, and it's all campus email addresses. We are not using no personal email address. So please, 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 I insist, I keep saying that because I know how difficult it is for our students to look and check our school emails. So do your best and be familiar with it. We don't want to disqualify anyone for a little error that was made. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. With that being said, I'll be moving to the last item, which is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn today's USS Plenary nomination meetings? Wait, hold on, sorry, Lee. Before I adjourn, I wanted to say in the next upcoming weeks, you'll be getting the meeting notice for our next plenary meeting, October 17th. This was sent in the documents that was sent by USERC, but I'm going to reiterate it here. October 17th is our elections meeting. Make sure you come with ample ID ready. Make sure you come prepared. Make sure you all talk to each other to make sure people show up and a leadership is elected. So just want to emphasize that. And all of that will be sent by reminders. I know you all don't like the emails, but welcome to USS, because there's going to be a lot of emails that are going to be sent your way and you want to make sure you read. So that being said, moving to the last item on the agenda is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
Yes.
I would like to.
Louis. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
Yes,
So
there is.
moved.
I will motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Louis seconds. Any discussion or readiness? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any nays, any abstentions? This meeting is now adjourned at 7:26 p.m. Welcome to University Student Senate, everyone. And have a wonderful day. And we will be following up with documents. Take care, everyone.
All right, enjoy the rest
Peace.
of the day.
Bye,
Peace.
guys.